Hey guys, I'm back and let's talk about round two from the 2021 Jack Taylor Memorial from Victoria, BC. I've got my score sheet here. I've analyzed the game already, and yeah, let's get started. So I've made a few changes in this video. I got rid of the 3D board. I thought that was a little bit too cumbersome to analyze properly while recording the video. So I got rid of that, put my microphone studio arm back because the audio wasn't so great when I don't have it right in front of my face, and switched out from ChessBase because it's a little bit awkward to do arrows and so forth. So just a reminder that day one has 3 rounds, and I had only slept for 2 hours on the first for the first day. I had woken up, I think it was about 1 a.m. when I woke up, so I was already super sleepy. I finished round one, which I lost. Oh, sorry, spoiler alert. But if you haven't seen, I mean, if you're watching round two before you watch round one, you kind of deserve it, right? So I lost the first round, and then after the first round, I went back and had some lunch, and then I didn't really have any time for anything else, so I just kind of rested for a little bit. I didn't have very long. I had like 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes, and then went back downstairs to the tournament hall and started my round two game. So as you can see here, my round two opponent was Frank O'Brien, who was rated 1711 CFC. That's about 1711 USCF. We're pretty much on par with USCF. And I didn't know anything about this player. I know that he's I've seen his name around, but I've never seen him play or anything. So I was going into this completely cold. It was slightly unusual that I got black again, because I was just black in the first round, but it's not that unusual. I mean, it'll even out. But it's slightly unusual to have black back to back, like rounds 1 and 2, but not a huge deal. So I don't know why I'm looking at the score sheet here. I don't think there's anything notable. I mean, I keep track of the move times in there as well, but I don't think we really need to refer to that too much because we both had pretty good time control the whole game. It was pretty much perfect time management from both of us. So let's not look at that. Okay. So make sure everything's recording here. Yeah, he started with D4. Which, kind of boring. By the way, my opponent was a bit, I'm so bad at guessing ages, but, he's a bit older of a player, maybe like 60, 65. It's hard to say. Something like that. So D4 is, it's, I don't know, a little bit boring for me to see, but it's okay. I played knight F6, and he quickly whipped out bishop g5, the Trompowsky. I was slightly surprised to see it. I mean, there's no reason for me to be surprised to see it, but it's not that common, really. At least I don't see it all that often. And it's been a little while since I've played against it, so not super fresh with the ideas, but I wasn't scared or anything of it. I played d5. I did spend a few seconds to try to just remember what my ideas were, but I played d5, which was my correct repertoire move, and he took. And here you can take either way, g takes or e takes. They're both equally good. If you take with a g pawn, it leads to a very imbalanced position and material. If you take with the e pawn, it's the opposite. It's very straightforward, nothing fancy. So it's a lot more straight-laced. But if you want like imbalances, you can take with the G pawn. But I took with the E pawn, and he played E3, which is the main line. And here I thought for a little bit, I mean, not super long, but I couldn't decide if I wanted to play bishop e7 or bishop d6. I thought they were probably both fine, but the reason why I was hesitant to play bishop d6, I'm trying to remember now. I mean, I had my reasons, but I just couldn't really quite decide. I think I was slightly nervous about blocking my d pawn. I thought that might be a bit of a issue, but it wasn't a huge deal here, but I was kind of deciding between the two moves. In the end, I did play bishop d6 because I thought putting the bishop on e7, that I might just have to move it again. Like once I castle, then I'm kind of blocking the e file for my rook. So I put it on bishop d6, which is the main line. And he played g3, which surprised me a little bit because I don't really recall g3 being so common. It turns out that it's the second main line here. The main line being c4, contesting the center. Whoops. But yeah, he played g3. I mean, it makes sense. It's not that unusual, but it did surprise me slightly because, you know, he's blunting my bishop immediately, and then I almost start to regret the bishop on d6, but at the same time, he's not breaking the center, and I mean, there's pros and cons to it. There was nothing wrong with it. Okay, so I castled, and bishop g2, and here I played f5. Now, as I understand, most of these moves will transpose. Like you have c6, f5, and part of the reason, one of the main reasons to play f5 is so that you can transfer this knight over to f6. So you're creating that square for the knight so that it's not going to be stuck in limbo there. And also, you're also kind of creating like almost a reverse Maroczy bind type of setup here. And you're also stopping advances from white. So I thought, you know, c6, knight d7, f5, I thought these all kind of transpose. It doesn't really matter, but I played it because it's also a little bit of almost like a waiting move in a sense. And I also played it to kind of show my opponent that, like, I'm familiar with this type of structure, so I'm not afraid to play a move like f5. Now, when I got home, I ran this really deep and long with Stockfish, like depth 49, like 3 lines. I might have even run it longer. And I was a little bit surprised that f5 isn't bad here, but it's actually about a 40 to 50 centipon difference of the best move, which is the main line. So the main line is c6, and it took me a while to figure out why c6 is better than f5, because they transpose. Like it really, I mean, it transposes. So I was really confused. And then I figured it out after, you know, a lot of analysis with Stockfish. The problem with f5 is it's a little bit slow, and white is ready to break on c4. So if white plays knight d2 here, and then if we defend, I mean, we have to defend our d pawn. If we defend it with c6, white can immediately play c4, and if we take, he takes with tempo, we have to move our bishop back. And it's not a big deal, but it's a slight improvement for white. So if we play c6 first, which is the main line, and then if white repeats a setup, we can, instead of playing f5, we can play bishop e6, and we are x-raying this c4 square, so c4 cannot be played anymore. And that's really the main difference. So in the future, c6 is a little bit better for that reason. And I'm happy I figured that out. So I kind of learned something new there. Another reason I played f5 was I was kind of baiting my opponent into taking, or Frank into taking on d5. I mean, I knew he wouldn't fall for it, but it was kind of worth the attempt, because if white takes on d5, I have a discovery on his bishop, And if he takes on, if he blocks with c3, I can take that pawn, and if he takes with the b pawn, I can take his bishop, and I'm up a pawn. Now the problem is he could take with the knight, but I thought I had an answer for that too. I'm trying to remember what it was. So I was thinking, yeah, if he takes on d5, and I give a check, and if he plays c3, I'm trying to remember now. Because I thought, I thought there was a, if you go c3. Oh, right. I just take the bishop. So I just take the bishop because I'm on the rook on h1. So I mean, my opponent's 17-11, which is, that's, in my opinion, that's a strong player. So I knew he wouldn't fall for it, but I thought it wouldn't, no harm, no foul, because I thought everything would transpose here. Anyways, he played knight e2 fairly quickly. Like, he's not going to fall for this. He's 17-11. He's like, give me some respect. So, c6 now, it all kind of transposes. And so it appears that my opponent didn't really know about the f5 weakness either. Otherwise, he could have played knight d2 and then c4. Okay. So I played c6. Yeah, he castled. I played knight d7, getting ready to transfer the knight. Queen d3. Yeah, he thought a bit on this move, I think. Let's see. Move 9. Oh, no, he spent 4 minutes. He spent 4 minutes on this. On queen d3. Queen d3 surprised me a little bit. I thought it was interesting. I guess he was trying to put pressure on f5 while at the same time supporting c4 breaks. And the computer says it's fine, but it's the queen is still a little bit awkward on d3. It's kind of in the way of things, but it's a fine move. I played knight f6, and he played c4. As we talked about. Very thematic break in the Trompowsky. Yeah, I took. Otherwise, he just gets too much space. And then bishop e6, we kind of gain a tempo. So this whole idea of taking with the queen isn't really the optimal. I mean, it's okay, but it's not the optimal way for white to play. So queen c2, and I'm feeling pretty confident here. Like, I'm almost finished developing, and I've got the bishop pair, and that's not bad. So rook c8, just developing my rook and facing his queen. So his queen is still under the gun a little bit. He develops his knight, and yeah, now I'm starting to slow down on ideas. But I thought, okay, let's develop this rook, because I don't think anything is going to happen on the f file anytime soon. I don't think that's opening up. So let's develop the rook. I could wait and put it on d8, but I thought that there's probably going to be something happening on the e file eventually anyways. So let's play rook e8. And I should mention that so far, like, the computer is happy with everything on both sides. Like, I think not even an inaccuracy, other than possibly my f5 move. But even that, it doesn't call it an inaccuracy, I don't think. Okay, white plays rook ac1, developing his rook at the same time. And I played a move that looks, at first glance, it looks like it might not be great. But it's fine. I played g6. It looks like I'm weakening my king side, but I know that this is a structure that you can play in the Trompowsky. There's too many pawns and pieces here for me not to be able to do this. So my thinking was that, first of all, it's kind of a waiting move. I'm kind of just waiting to see what white does, but I'm also beefing up f5 so that this bishop is now free to, if I ever want to move it somewhere, I can move it and it doesn't have to babysit f5 anymore. So I was content with g6. He played rook fd1, and I played queen e7, just simply getting off of the x-ray of his rook. At the same time, e7 is kind of a nice square because possibly there's some issues, some weaknesses here if he ever pushes his f-pawn, for example. Okay. I think my opponent thought for a little while here. Let's see. Yeah, he did. 11 minutes on this move. That's might have been the longest he thought in the whole game, I think. Yeah, he thought for a very long time. I think this is just kind of one of those positions where you you kind of run out of ideas and you have to kind of just step back and think what your strategy is going to be. And he played queen b1, which, when I saw it, I thought it was okay. But I had no idea what he was doing. Like I had no idea what his plan was with queen b1. And after the game, him and I analyzed the game together. So we shared our thoughts and everything. But I forget what he said about queen b1. I think he just wanted to get off of my rook line and possibly, I guess, help defend a2. Okay. Here I played a move which I think is my first actual inaccuracy. And I thought for a while here myself, 9 minutes, I think. Yeah, I thought for 9 minutes on this move. So I was in the same boat. I was like, what do I do now? I was thinking maybe bishop c4 just to cause some harassment. But again, I kind of went with another waiting move. I went king g7. I thought, we just get our king a little bit more active and ready for the endgame. It's not the best move though. It's playable, like it's fine, but there were slightly better alternatives, but they're not easy to understand. I think the computer liked bishop c4, and I think if b3, it actually wants to tuck back to a6, and I mean it's a little bit confusing, but now we've created some dark squared weaknesses here so that our bishop can go to a3 later, and we have and also our bishop can't be targeted, and we're kind of controlling some interesting squares. So that was the computer's idea. It's a little strange. It also was saying rook cd8, which I think is a hard move to play because we've already moved the rook once, but our queen was on d8 at that point. But it wants to move it again to the d file. Again, I think that's a really hard move to play because essentially it figures that things are going to action is going to happen on the d file, not the c file. So we can beef up the d5 square. But yeah, I played king g7 instead. My opponent played d5, which was the best move, and I didn't really have a choice. You kind of have to take here, and you can take either way. With anything, they all kind of transpose essentially. So I took with the knight. So takes, and he took again. Takes, rook takes. And just to give you an idea of time remaining, here I had, wait, not here. Yeah, sorry. Here my opponent had 51 minutes left, and I had 45 minutes left. Well, not yet, after my next move. Yeah, so here my opponent had 51 minutes. And yeah, so I mean, we've simplified a lot. I have the bishop. I thought the position was pretty equal, and Stockfish agrees. And I couldn't really find a way to progress, so I decided to trade rooks here. Because my opponent was higher rated than me, so I was actually fine with a draw. In fact, I would be pretty happy if I could get a draw. Yeah, so I traded rooks. He took, and again, I was looking for a way to improve the position. I would like to win the game, right? But I don't, I want to be careful. I decided to play queen e6. We're hitting the rook, and we're also x-raying a2, and we are at the same time defending c8 so that we can bring our rook to c8. So a pretty multi-purpose move, and defending the bishop. It's like 4-in-1. So queen e6, and he played queen d2. My next move I thought was pretty straightforward, but after the game, my opponent said it was a really good move. But I mean, he's attacking my bishop twice. We have to move the bishop, or I don't really want to defend it again. That seems dangerous because my rook is undefended. So I played bishop e5. So I mean, to me, it was a must-have because otherwise his knight gets into f4. Right? It either goes to f4 or, well, potentially, if I'm not careful, if he moves the rook, he can go to d4. But really, I don't want him to getting into f4. I think that's a recipe for disaster. I mean, his knight to f4. Because right now his knight is pretty terrible, and this improves it quite a bit. So I wanted to control f4 there. Yeah, so here my opponent made a move similar to what I did before, and he spent he didn't spend longer. He spent 2 minutes, but he played king g2. So similar to my king g7 move. And it's about as bad as my king g7 move. It's not the best move. It's playable, but it's not a great move. There were better things that white could have been doing here instead of moving the king. And it's just a dangerous spot for the king. So I immediately see this, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to pin the rook because this has to be strong. The rook is paralyzed now. And yeah, I think he let out a small little sigh, like realizing, and he said after the game, he said this was just stupid. This was just a moronic move. And yeah, and so he played king g1, which, yeah, he just realized his mistake and moved back. Now, at this point in the game, you can afford to make those tiny little errors because we're in an endgame, so there's going to be a lot of maneuvering. I didn't really know how to proceed here. I played h6. I think I was just very slowly planning to creep up because again, I don't want to move this bishop because I want to stop that was probably my plan. I might have been thinking about possibly g5 so that this bishop can then move, and now g5 is defended by a pawn. But it was also kind of just a waiting move as well. My opponent played rook d7, and I played rook c8. The rook is not really going to do anything on the e-file with the pawns like this, so let's build a battery. And I don't know if you can call it a battery though when the queen is leading. But I thought that this made sense. Oh, I better hurry. This is a long video, hey? 25 minutes. Yeah, so rook c8, and just to help control the c-file, I might be able to trade off the queens or challenge his rook. Okay. Here he played b3, and I played rook c7. So as I say, my opponent was rated, about 150 points higher than me, or a bit more, or something like that, a bit more than that. So even if I got a draw, I mean, I'm black too, right? But a draw would be good because I would gain rating points. It might only be a few points, but it's a gain. And also I was tired, right? I had no sleep, so I was playing on fumes. So I'd be happy with a draw here. So just rook c7. He took. I took it as a queen. Queen d5. So here, immediately I was thinking of queen d6. Offering another trade, and it's a bishop versus knight endgame. But I wasn't sure. I mean, I know there is pawns on both sides of the board, so the bishop should be a little bit better than the knight. But knights are tricky, man, and I was a little bit worried that I might screw up the endgame and lose. So I spent a bit of time here looking for a way that I could push for more of an advantage before I trade queens off. but I couldn't find anything. I just couldn't. So after a bit of a think, I played queen d6. Queen d6. He played knight c3, and I played queen e6. Basically now white has 2 pieces under attack, and I think that forces the trade. So something will be traded now, and I'm closer to an endgame. He played queen d3, and again I thought for a little bit here to see, do I want to go into an endgame? Now if I trade, it's going to be a queen and pawn endgame, and I thought my king is a little bit more active. There's no way I'm worse here. There's just no way I'm worse. So I took, he took, and I was thinking, I didn't play queen f6 right away because I gave some consideration to f6, but because I was thinking maybe f6 first, and then if he gives us a check, then I play queen f7. But I still think I might end up being too passive there. So I forced, well, I didn't force a queen trade, but I played queen f6, which he either has to move his queen and essentially lose a tempo, or he has to trade. So he took, which I was slightly surprised about. I thought he might try to really draw it out, draw the game out a bit more, and like make me play a long queen and pawn endgame. But yeah, he traded, and then he played f3, and that was surprising because I'm like, shouldn't you be moving your king up? This makes it. I thought that's definitely like I thought for sure he was going to move his king. But he played f3, and I thought that might be a bit of a mistake, but probably it was okay. The computer says that it was a misplay. I think because the king is now passive, and he'll have to spend another pawn move if he wants to have some breathing room for the king. Okay, but it wasn't a big deal, but it was a bit of an inaccuracy. You should have brought up the king. Okay, yeah. So I bring up my king, right? Active king, king f2 now, and here I played a5. I thought that this is. I thought for sure this is a draw. I have the broken majority here. Or what's it called? Not broken majority. Crippled. No, it's not a majority though. So that's interesting. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking about a past lesson I had. Yeah, so I played a4. I thought I would basically lock this stuff up because my mindset was draw. I just want to draw, and I thought, okay, I can get an easy draw here, or relatively easy draw, right? Because I have enough reserve tempi and everything. But actually, black is winning here. And the reason is, as I understand it, is that my king is basically, it's more active. Because he played f3, his king is stuck behind these pawns. And that's a problem because he can't play moves like f4 anymore. Because my king just gets even more active, and he gets a backwards pawn. So g5 is winning here. Again, if white plays like f4 check, I can take, and then my king is just too active. I can go to e4 or d4, and I'm threatening these pawns now, and he can't break. He can't do anything with these. And if he does nothing, like if he moves his king, I have g4, which is the only winning move. And if he takes, now this king cannot leave this pawn. And then my king can go snap these ones up. And if he pushes, same thing as before, my king can like my king is just too active. I have too many choices with my king, and he can never break through because I have 4 pawns here. So yeah, I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I had no clue that this was a win. Again, I think the key characteristic here is that my king is more active, so I can afford to disrupt the pawn structure because my king has the right of way. Okay, but I played a5, and yeah, he played king e2, b5, king d3, king d5, taking the opposition, a3. I played king e5, a4, b takes a4. I can't push because his king just goes to c4 and gobbles up my pawns. So I took, king d5, getting the opposition again, king c3. And I think here I offered him so here I played king c5 and I offered him a draw. And he refused it, which made me a bit angry, just because I usually only ever offer a draw when I feel like my opponent definitely doesn't have an advantage. But I mean, I didn't blame him. I just wanted a draw. Now the draw offer and the move were both terrible because h5 is winning and a g5 computer says it's an advantage, probably winning as well. I mean, it says -2, so it's got to be winning. But h5 is completely winning. The point is, black has more options here than white because I have more reserved tempi and that gives me an advantage. So for example, h5, if white ignores it, then we have if white ignores it, yeah, we could play g5. I'm looking at the engine right now. Engine's helping me out. And like if h3, g4, and now if this happens, we have f5, and again, it's just that our king is better placed, so he can't defend both pawns here. If he goes here, we can grab this one, and if he stays around here, we can grab this pawn. So I think it's really about the active king, the better placed king. Okay, I played king c5, king b3, yeah, king d5, and it was a draw. That was the end of the game. So threefold there. When we made the final move, my opponent looked up at me, gave me kind of like a burning smile, like he wasn't happy that I drew him, but he respected it. Yeah, and as I say, after the game, we analyzed things, and he was a very gracious. Well, it's funny because I feel like I won the game, even though it was a draw, and I just get that feeling when my opponent is higher rated. I always feel like a draw is a victory in a way. I know that I had chances to win in the end game there, but you know, that's a lesson learned for next time. The engine says that we both played very well. It's kind of hard not to in that type of opening though. Let me I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, so other than the ending, we played like perfect. Let me okay, I'm going to show you here. Okay, you guys can see. I know it cuts off a little bit because of my webcam. Oh, let me turn off the webcam. Okay, you can kind of see there. That's just the ending when I had those wins with the pawn pushes. But other than that, it was pretty well played. I mean, the first 31 moves by both sides was like pretty much flawless. And I think this little dip here, that was when he played f3. So yeah, so this game, there were basically two things I learned. The first one was that in the opening, there was a little bit of a, move order improvement where instead of f5, I could c6 first because it stopped knight d2, c4. And then in the end game, I should be a little bit more ambitious because I had a win here. So I have to kind of identify those opportunities in the future. But yeah, that was my second round game. So it was a draw, and my score was 0.5 out of 2 but I was in the premier section. So I was feeling good after the game. I went back to my hotel room, where I was on my way back to the hotel room when I heard my name. Someone called out my name, like Tyler, and then they called it out again. And I thought, and I saw, kind of a large man, and he was looking at me, and I thought, like, what, like, was it part of the hotel staff? Was it? I thought most likely it was somebody from the tournament, like some tournament helper, and I didn't record my result properly, even though I did, or there was some issue. And anyways, long story short, it turned out to be one of my viewers, on my YouTube viewers. He's like, "Hey Tyler, how's it going? I watch your YouTube." So I was very surprised because my YouTube channel is extremely small. I don't even have 500 subscribers yet. I have, I think, 490. And yeah, I was just kind of surprised to see that. It turned out to be his first tournament. I'm sure you're watching right now, Victor. So hello. And yeah, it was his first tournament, and he did quite well actually for his first tournament. And it was nice talking to him. At the same time, I wanted to get back to my hotel room to rest, because again, we had a third round, and I wanted to rest for that as soon as possible because I had no sleep. But no, I did not mind talking to him. It was interesting, and I'm always happy when people are playing their first tournament and finding out how fun it is. So that's it for this video. I will be back soon with another video for round number 3. Okay, thanks for watching.